I call this meeting to order at 7:09 p.m. And we're going to take a 3-minute recess while we fix all the Zoom stuff. Does anyone have any objections? Seeing none, we'll get back at 7:12. Sorry, everyone, but we're still facing some technical difficulties. So we're going to take another 2-minute recess unless anyone has any objections. We will resume at 7:14 p.m.
just to make sure you guys can hear us on Zoom, right?
Yes, we can hear you. There's still no video though.
We're running into technical difficulties, so we're gonna start the meeting off with no video. And then hopefully we'll have the issue fixed by then. Let's get started. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Have you?
Can we strike back allocations?
Carolyn, followed by Nico.
Can we strike SFS allocations?
Can I strike laundry grant and Bruin grant?
Bethany,
Hi, can I please check capital contingency allocations?
have you?
Can we move to add a letter of opposition to Assembly Bill 715 by Spur and Addis?
We get a second.
I second.
Having motions, Kara seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 12-0 to 1 vote, that is approved. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Tommy, sorry.
Motion to add letter of no confidence in Steve Lurie to the agenda.
Second.
Tommy motions, Javi seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. Sorry, was that against? With a 12-1-0 vote, that is approved. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Javi.
Jonathan, for amendments to the minutes, do we have the motion? Oh, okay.
Any other amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, could we get a motion? Kiara.
I motion to approve the Tuesday, May 13th USAC agenda.
I second.
Kiara motions, Tamim seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 13-0 vote, that is approved. We have minutes from May 6th. Are there any amendments? Have you?
Yeah, can I please move to make an amendment to the May 6 minutes specifically for ASU's earn proposal? The amendment to be made is the funds will be housed under Campus Life through the Seoul office.
Are there any other amendments? Are there any opposition to approving the minutes? Seeing none, those are approved. We are now going to move on to public comment. Just a reminder for everyone that's here for public comment. We have 30 minutes total, and each public commenter gets 2 minutes to speak once. Some of our community guidelines include challenge ideas, not individuals, use gender inclusive and respectful language, and freedom of speech does not mean freedom from accountability. With that being said, is there anyone that's here in person that would like to give public comment? Let's start with Kalberg. Yeah.
No, oh, it is on. Oh, sweet. Okay. Gotcha. Alrighty. Good evening. My name's Gunnar, and I'm here tonight with Kalberg as the vice chair. I'm also here tonight with our chapter chair, Betty, who's sitting right behind me. I'm just here to give you guys our little weekly update on what's been going on with us and student activism on campus. Recently, we had an awesome opportunity to meet with the LA Sustainability Coalition, which includes a number of heavy hitters in the sustainability world across LA, specifically to discuss greater issues across the county and the city when it comes to sustainability and talking about reusability and sustainability when it comes to the 2028 Olympics, which Kalberg will be running a project on, try and work towards zero single-use plastic containers at that event. Additionally, this week, as I'm sure all aware, USAC elections are going on. By the way, if you haven't, go vote. Kalberg is running a project all week long, tabling, flyering, and doing all of that to try and make it clear to students how they can make their voices heard so our students are enfranchised. Additionally, we have a clothing drive going on Friday where we're going to be collecting clothes with a number of local sustainability and fashion organizations across campus to donate to those in need. We also have a screening on Friday, which is going to be for the Sequoias of the Sea, which is a documentary focusing on our kelp forests, which are hugely damaged. We lost 90% of them in the past 10 years. Fun fact, that's going to be in Royce at 6 p.m. on Friday. And just a little heads up for the future. Next Friday, the 23rd, we will be having a benefit concert where local student-led bands will be performing to raise money for a women's shelter in LA. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Thank you, Gunnar. Do we have anyone else that's here for public comment in person? Yes.
All right. Hello, y'all. My name is Mika Kabebe, she, her. I'm a student here at UCLA, as well as the external vice president of Samahang Filipino. Last week, we stood before y'all raising the issues we've been facing regarding funding for our programming, specifically our Culture Night, SPCN, and PGRAD. Since then, we've been in contact with various folks and stakeholders regarding sources of funding and other solutions. While we express much gratitude for the individuals helping us navigate this process, it doesn't change the fact that we've consistently struggled year to year to fund these events, running into the same barriers. It goes to show that the current systems in place for providing funding and support in general for cultural organizations is not working. And with the current Trump administration, these impacts are exacerbated. I'm here today to show support for SPCN and our PGRAD, but also to emphasize the overarching campaign that SP is taking up called Rise for Rights. Rise for Rights is a campaign waged by Kabataan Alliance, or KA, a national alliance made up of 50 plus Filipino youth and student orgs, which SP is a part of, that aim to serve communities here in the US and in the Philippines. It pushes for Filipino youth and students like us to fight for free, pro-people, and culturally relevant education, especially within institutions and systems that make it extremely hard for us to access it. As students of an institution that does not serve us and actively tries to repress our voices, it is our job to advocate for support and resources that serve our community, because if not us, then who else? With that being said, the current BOD funding guidelines provide an ambiguous promise of providing fair and equal funding opportunities for orgs, but don't outline any tangible means of ensuring this. By revising these guidelines to include specific language incorporating underserved communities, these respective groups will be able to acquire the assistance needed in order to best support their experience as students while navigating various systemic barriers. I recognize the positionality that you all have as council members operating within a bureaucratic system. However, I urge you all as fellow peers to support current and future efforts fighting for pro-people education, not only for the Filipino community, but for all other underserved communities on campus. We all, to an extent, have experienced the repression that the Trump administration and even UCLA admin have enacted upon our communities. And now more than ever, we should be united in
Please
pushing
come to your
back.
closing remarks.
I call upon the committee or the council to use their influence to support our fight for free, pro-people, and culturally relevant education, and urge you all to take that first step and vote in favor of revising current BOD funding guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that's here in person for public comments? Yes.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jazzy Bermejo, and I currently serve as the president of Samahang Filipino here at UCLA. Today, I stand before you again to speak on behalf of our organization's cultural night and graduation and the university's failure to recognize and address the systemic barriers we face in preserving, protecting, and promoting our people's culture and community. Year after year, our cultural programming has been chronically subject to financial insecurity and instability. The support UCLA extends is mere fractions of what we truly need, and it only continues to dwindle. Not only are we allocated abysmal funds, but UCLA itself is a perpetrator of the issues we face. They continue to charge massive fees that cost tens of thousands of dollars, and they only continue to rise with no end in sight. Taking up Kabataan Alliance's Rise for Rights campaign, SP has always stood for free, culturally relevant, and pro-people education, and this mission is exactly what we tirelessly fight for now. But in these collective efforts, we as individuals have been forced to work ourselves to the bone, and the university has normalized this relentless exhaustion. For so long, we have fought to take space for our community, but the time that this university acts to make space for us is long overdue. BOD guidelines have a neutrality clause that we can assume serves as a basis for fair and equal funding allocation. However, we can see that the impacts of these guidelines are the exact opposite, taking on a colorblind approach that ignores the systemic barriers marginalized communities here on campus face. Mass issues like this span years before us, and if change is not enacted now, they will only continue to span for years after. It is in this that I urge the council to vote on revising point 5 under funding eligibility and rules of the BOD guidelines to include language allowing the adjustment of funding for programming that engages historically underserved student populations. This will not only support the fight we wage now for true equity in our university, but for years to come after. Samahang Filipino calls on the council to vote yes on changing these guidelines and join SP in rising for our rights and rising for education. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that's here to give public comment in person? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Cosico. I'm a fourth year here at UCLA, and I serve as Samahang Filipino Cultural Night Coordinator. On behalf of our organization's Cultural Night and graduation ceremony, I'm once again urging you to change VOD guidelines and to promote real equitable access to funds for marginalized communities. I want to give more context on SVCN as its coordinator this year and the impact of our event. With this current trend of increasing costs of Royce material culture and honoraria for our live Filipino band and decreasing funding, the logistics of putting on SVCN even within the next few years is in financial jeopardy despite public support and demand for our show. This year, SPCN's general admission tickets sold out in 1.5 minutes. Each year, on and on, we fill Royce Hall's house, which has a max capacity of 1,825 people. And even more people view our show through live stream. Even our cultural night from 2 years ago has amassed a cumulative view count of over 8,000 views on YouTube. We are the biggest Filipino cultural night in the nation, and although there is a high demand for viewing our show, we keep the show free for a reason. We want to maintain an accessible production for all people to be able to watch, partake, and learn from this cultural production. BOD guidelines say that events, cultural and educational in nature, are strongly prioritized. Thus, I urge y'all to be able to uphold these promises and the missions that you claim in your funding apps and provide more equitable funding for these cultural events integral to campus and student life, and support Samahang Filipino to rise for our rights and for pro-people education. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more public commenters? Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Council. My name is Kay Padilla, and I'm the current chairperson of Anak Bayan at UCLA, an organization of Filipino youth and students advocating for genuine democracy and national liberation in the Philippines. I have come out to this meeting today alongside my peers to urge you all to change the BOD guidelines to promote equitable access to funds for marginalized communities. As a neoliberal institution, as I am sure you are all aware of, the university exists to maximize profits for its shareholders while actively neglecting students, workers, and faculty, even opening up our community to fascist attacks and actively repressing us through militarizing our campus. Accordingly, UCLA has repeatedly shown that it has not been willing to offer truly pro-people, culturally relevant education that empowers Filipino students and other marginalized students to take action in their community, since that works against their interests. That is why they require students, even like SPCN and the 2025 P-Grad, to navigate the bureaucracy of funding apps to receive slivers of our own student fees instead of providing financial support from UCLA Foundation's $14.7 billion endowment assets. Anak Bayan abhors the university's willful neglect in favor of doing anything to maintain its shareholders, its bottom line for its shareholders, which includes allowing student programs to take the hits of the bulk of the budget cuts to our education. We urge you, our peers, to support Filipino students' fight for free, pro-people, culturally relevant education, and to revise the BOD guidelines as our programs face attacks. In line with Anak Bayan's Take Back Our Education campaign, we call on the Council to vote on revising point 5 under funding eligibility and rules of the BOD guidelines to include language that allows the adjustment of funding for programming that engages underserved student populations, so long as the adjustments are not contingent on the views of the event sponsors or participants. The current guidelines claim to advance equity, but are merely the university's attempt to obscure the inequity of the status quo. And a truly equitable approach requires funding bodies to take into account the historical and material factors that affect underserved populations. Thank you for your time.
Are there any other public commenters?
Hello, my name is Cody Tabamo. I'm a student here at UCLA, and I'm here as one of the assistant coordinators to the dance component for SPCN, and as a candidate to be next year's SPCN coordinator. As Filipinx Americans, we are students attending an institution that has a history of attempts to silence our voices and erase the struggles that we have been through. We come here today with many grievances, specifically against the current inequitable systems of allocating funding, but we also come with the hope that you, as our student representatives, find it in you to empathize with our stories and reassure us that you can stand with us so that we can stand with you as we fulfill our missions. As we mentioned before, SPCN was established nearly 5 decades ago when a group of Filipinx Americans at UCLA found a lack of representation for their community, despite the growing needs of Filipinx students. While today's SPCN is largely different from what it initially looked like, its purpose of giving Filipinx students an opportunity to explore the culture and show their identities through dance, music, and storytelling still stands. Performing on a stage like Royce Hall allows even more eyes to fall onto our stories. With the recent years where we have sold out the nearly 2,000 seats for the show proves SPCN's pertinence in promoting widespread cultural awareness and education. Unfortunately, with the current state of funding allocations for UCLA organizations in conjunction with rising production costs, fulfilling this vision becomes increasingly challenging. Being able to use this literal platform has proven effects in empowering other Filipinx Americans, with many students being drawn to UCLA because of this program. Many of these students were only able to witness it due to our entirely free admission. Despite our financial struggles, we keep our admissions free. If we charge just $5 for a ticket, doing so would decimate our financial burdens. Yet we stand to host an entirely accessible show with hopes to cultivate a diverse community and inspire other individuals to express their identities in a world where it is becoming more and more difficult to do so. Our issues span further than just within the Filipinx community on campus, with other cultural nights also struggling with the accumulation of adequate funding. There have been instances where these organizations look to us for assistance, but we're unable to offer any. This, frankly, is unacceptable. Knowing the values that UCLA holds, why do so many cultural organizations lack support from our student government? We are not asking for much. We only want more equitable and accessible allocation of student funding. As we mentioned in our talks about Kabataan Alliance's Rise for Rights campaign, promoting these cultural programs is ever important in the current political climate. I know you, as our representatives, come from a variety of unique backgrounds. Many of you know how it feels not to be represented or seen. As the costs and stakes for our show grow year after year, I ask you to help us in making sure our stories remain seen now and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public commenters? Yes. Sorry, we have someone else. Please raise your hands before you go up. We have another public commenter. We can go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kali Jackson, and I am the Vice Chairperson of the African Student Union on campus and the Chairperson of the Harambe Council at UCLA, which is the governing body of the African Student Union. Here representing ASU, and we stand with Samahang Filipino and making sure that they have adequate funding and just advocating for PGRAD. As a member of the AfroGrad committee under the African Student Union, I know firsthand how vital it is to make sure that we have the proper resources and funding to make sure that our cultural organizations are able to thrive on campus, not just through the academic year, but also for graduation, because graduation is commemorating the hard work and dedication of the students on campus. And so we urge you as the council to please stand with Samahang Filipino and advocating for them and making sure they have the proper funding to continue going forth with PGRAD. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you can go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Logan Malonzo Munoz. I am a student here at UCLA, and I'm one of the financial coordinators for the 48th SPCN. I've been a part of SPCN since my second year, and I've learned a lot more about myself through learning about Filipino culture. I'm here to express my concern about the increasing cost of Royce Hall and the diminishing returns of allocations that we have received from BOD. So, for example, just a decade ago in 2014, Royce Hall cost $28,134.15. Just 3 years ago, it was $34,771. This year, we have been quoted $43,434.80. And with this, it has increased almost $20,000 in the last 10 years. What have we received? 2 years ago, we received $2,000. Last year, we received $3,000 with an additional $4,000 from BOD surplus. This year, we received $600. That does not really cover what we need for Royce Hall. As mentioned before, we are promoting a Rise for Rights campaign, which pushes for students to learn and teach education that is pertinent to our culture in a system that is extremely hard for us. In the context of what I said before, where we stand financially has made it and will continue to make it more difficult to spread Filipino culture. We have a saying, no history, no self. If you do not know about your history, then you cannot know everything about yourself. And we use SPCN to teach not only about culture, but yourself as well. If we do not do this now, then who will in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other public commenters? Yes, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Alessandra Magallanes, and I am this year's internship coordinator for Samahang Filipino. SB has been a second home to me. It has provided me with that feeling of warmth and love as I get to celebrate my culture and identity with people that look like me in a country that has vastly different identifying individuals. As internship coordinator, I want to pass this same passion and provide that feeling of home to the next generation of leaders. To see that this home that I have been very much involved in and have done everything in my power to take care of is going through discrepancies just because of lack of funding from a university that should be supporting and uplifting us as students of their university is disheartening and painful. Here present with me are my interns, and as much as I want to protect my interns from this harsh reality, it is my job to be transparent with them. The struggles we face today will not disappear when the next academic year comes. They are problems that, if left unaddressed, will continue to affect next year's leaders and the leaders after that. And that's what breaks my heart the most. My job is not just to pass down knowledge, but it's also about cultivating a community that understands SP's rich roots in advocacy and continue this over the next few years. And as the individual guiding the next generation of leaders in charge of organization, I do not wish the same burden to be passed on to these people that I know are capable of so much and have so much to give for Samahang Filipino. I want them to focus on the kind of change that they can make, not on whether they'll have the resources to do it. I see their potential, their passion, and their heart, and they deserve to grow without being held back by material limitations we've been fighting year after year. I recognize that all of you guys are students as well, but students that represent us as a whole. It is with our deepest request for you to hopefully fight alongside us and support our organization. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Do we have any other public commenters? Yes, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mia Mattering. I am currently a first year and a current intern under the Filipinx Leadership Internship Program for Samahang Filipino. And currently I shadow our internship coordinator and our external vice president. As a first year, I was able to find a community under Samahang Filipino and develop my leadership skills. As an intern, I have seen the harsh realities that some of these board members face as they represent members of the student-led organization. This has, in turn, fueled my passion to pursue the role of internship coordinator myself and take on the task of teaching SP's next generation of community members and student leaders. But with this new intern cohort, I don't want them to be burdened with the worry of these chronic financial uncertainties that can make them hesitant with taking up a leadership position. For this new intern cohort, I plan to be the change that I want to see in the space, and it starts with me speaking to you all right now and advocating for better funding for Samahang Filipino Cultural Night and the 2025 Filipinx celebration. These two events have been cultural pillars of our community for decades, and the cuts against these programs represent cuts to the cultural fabric of UCLA itself. The current BOD guidelines include a neutrality clause that is intended to ensure fair and equal access to funds for organization. While the intent of this rule is something we approve of, in practice, this guideline takes on a colorblind approach that ignores the systematic barriers that marginalized communities face. Thus, I urge the council to vote on revising point 5 under funding eligibility and rules of the BOD guidelines to include language that allows for the adjustment of funding programming that engages underserved student population so long as the adjustments are not contingent on the views of the event sponsors or participants. Changing the guidelines would ensure that underserved student communities have necessary support from BOD. We call on the council to vote yes on changing these guidelines and join Samahang Filipino in rising for rights and rising for education. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public commenters?
Good evening. My name is Jamaica Nicole Sarmiento. I'm a member of the 2025 Filipino Celebration Committee and intern for Samahang Filipinos Cultural Night Coordinator. Today, I stand here to highlight an issue impacting one of our community's most important cultural events, Filipino Celebration. This year, our BOD support allocation is $600, which covers only 4.6% of Royce Hall's rental cost of around $13,000. This represents a 92.5 decrease from last year's funding. In 2022, BOD allocations covered over 96% of the venue costs, providing substantial support for our event. Today, that support has nearly disappeared, even as venue costs have surged 48% since 2018, rising from $8,868 to $13,153. This financial strain has compelled us to make difficult decisions, such as cutting out our programming, food, the photo booth, decorations, which are all staple components of Filipino celebrations, and for the past years, only affording the core elements of the celebration, we can only afford rendalia and honoraria. This continued decline in support, despite rising causes, undermines our ability to foster pride, community, and our cultural identity. Just as movements such as Rising for Our Rights and Rising for Education advocate for justice and equal opportunity, we believe that our cultural events deserve that same exact level of support, resources that reflect the true cost of sustaining our traditions and fostering community pride. I urge this body to reconsider the current guidelines and allocate resources that truly reflect the real cost of supporting our cultural events. Our community's history and future depend on equitable support that recognizes the increasing expenses and the vital importance of cultural celebration for marginalized groups like ours. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we had in the white shirt. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Alex Carceliar, she, her pronouns, and I am a first-year traditional student involved with Samahang Filipino through the Filipinx Leadership Internship Program, where I shadow our Samahang Filipino Cultural Night Coordinator and currently serve as Editor-in-Chief of the Peace Celebration Yearbook Project within Peace Celebration Committee. I am here to highlight a pressing issue that affects our community's ability to celebrate and honor our achievements. Due to funding limitations, we had to cut out the publishing of our yearbook project, a project much more than just a printed publication. It showcases the achievements of our graduating class, highlights our community's milestones, and is meant to serve as the printed program of our graduation event. The yearbook is a vital expression of our cultural pride and a tangible reminder of our collective journey. However, the significant gap between our current budget and costs like producing the yearbook exposes systemic issues within this institution. It reflects the ongoing lack of adequate funding for student-led initiatives that promote community, visibility, and cultural pride. When such projects are cut, it is not just about one publication. It is silencing our voices, our achievements, and our cultural identity. Just as Samahang Filipino has long been a pillar of cultural celebration and community advocacy on campus, we must ensure that our projects are supported. Samahang Filipino's efforts are rooted in Rise for Rights and pro-people education, and the yearbook is a mere extension of that mission, a tool to elevate our voices and preserve our history. I urge the administration and stakeholders to reconsider funding allocations and policies so that initiatives like such can continue to thrive. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. We only have time for a couple more public commenters. Is there anyone in person that's here for public comments? Yes, in the green.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mitch de Guzman, and I'm a first-year student here at UCLA and a member of Samahang Filipino through its leadership internship programs. Over the past year, I've had the privilege of learning deeply about the challenges that our Filipino community faces, both here in the US and abroad. I've also had conversations with our SBCN coordinators and others about the roles that events such as SBCN and PGRAD play, not just in Samahang, but in the fabric of UCLA's larger cultural community. You see, for our community, these aren't just events, but they also mean year-long journeys. SBCN represents hundreds of students dedicating countless hours to help reconnect with our culture and to share that connection proudly. not just with each other, but with the broader Los Angeles community. It's a powerful way to reclaim space, culture, and identity. While PGRAD is more than a ceremony, it's a culmination, a moment to celebrate years of hard work, perseverance, and cultural pride. It honors students who have spent their time here uplifting our community while navigating an institution that wasn't always built with us in mind. So when the university threatens to cut or reduce funding for programs such as these, programs that cost tens of thousands of dollars to run, yet mean everything to the students who participate in them, we have to ask, who is UCLA choosing to invest in instead? We pay thousands in tuition each year. We filled the lecture halls. In our sweat and tears, bring UCLA the very programs that it uses to bolster its case as the #1 public university. We, the students, keep UCLA running. And yet we're told that there's not enough money for the programs that help us feel seen, heard, and valued. If we don't stand up now for these programs and for our cultures and for each other, then who else will? We are part of a long history of marginalized communities fighting for recognitions in institutions like this one. And we owe it to the people before us and for those who will come after to stand up to forms of oppression such as these. The path forward isn't easy, but it is necessary. And it begins with standing together amidst the struggles that we as students face. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one more public comment here. Yes, in the gray.
Good evening, Council. My name is Christian Salazar. I'm a second-year transfer student here at UCLA. I'm the External Academic Retention Coordinator for SPEAR, which is Samahang Filipinos Retention Project, and I'm also the Arnis Coordinator for SPCN 48. As a transfer student coming from a community college, one of the things that I found most fascinating and amazing about UCLA was the fact that there was a space here where I could celebrate and learn more about my Filipino identity. To hear that these spaces have constantly struggled, financially speaking, in order to put on these productions that have brought together so many people here today has broken my heart in ways that I cannot describe. Finding community was an incredibly difficult task here, and it was only possible because of the spaces that I'm involved in and the spaces that are currently struggling at this moment here before you. Throughout my time here at UCLA, I managed to find those people because of these programs like SPCN, like PGRAD, for example. And to hear that that it is possible that PGRAD may not have all the possible funding that it needs in order to operate completely, as it has in previous years, makes it very difficult for me to truly celebrate just how far both myself and other peers that I've engaged with throughout my 2 years here at UCLA have come. I'm here, along with the rest of my peers, to encourage and urge this body, to revise the BOD guidelines in order to ensure that funding is extended to include organizations such as this. I also motion to extend public comment. I ask that you motion to extend public comment so that you could hear more from our community who've taken the time here to come over and express their thoughts and concerns about this current motion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll extend public comment time by 10 minutes. Are there any other public commenters here in person? Yes, in the corner.
Good evening. My name is Kate and I am currently the fiscal head for both BSU and our Culture Night. I'm here tonight to echo and uplift everything that has been said by our peers in Samahang, because this issue doesn't just affect one organization. It affects all of us in marginalized communities who are fighting to preserve our histories and celebrate our cultures. Just like Samahang, BSU has hosted cultural productions and programs that have served our communities for generations. But under BOD guidelines, we're seeing dangerous precedent being set, one where essential cultural programming is defunded in the name of neutrality. This neutrality cause, while well-intentioned, ignores the very real disparities that underserved communities face. Equity cannot exist without context. I urge the council to revise point 5 under funding eligibility and rules to allow for adjustments for events that serve marginalized student populations on UCLA campus, so long as those adjustments are not based on the political views and of the event sponsors of our participants. On behalf of the Vietnamese Student Union, our board, our projects, and our Vietnamese students across campus, we demand this change not only for ourselves, but for the generations of students who will follow across all cultures. Support us in preserving our culture and support us in protecting our voices of not only us, but as well as of our peers. We call on the council to vote yes on changing these guidelines, and we join Samahang Filipino in their endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public commenters? Yes, in their end.
My name is Lindsay Sambale, and I serve as the PGRAD coordinator for Samahang Filipino, one of UCLA's mother organizations. As the final voice in a long course of students who have poured their truths into the space, what you've heard tonight, story after story, testimony after testimony, should make one thing clear. The cultural labor that sustains this university is not being supported, and it is being sidelined. This year, both PGRAD and SPCN received only a $600 BOD funding, and that is not a clerical oversight, that is an institutional failure. A reflection of a system that continues to undervalue the cultural work that sustains marginalized communities on this campus. As part of the Rise for Rights campaign, we stand united with the Filipino student organizations across this campus, across the nation, advocating for pro-people, culturally relevant and equitable education. We are demanding that BOD guidelines be immediately revised. Neutrality in language does not guarantee fairness in practice. True equity requires intentional, deliberate action. We are demanding consistent, proactive communication between USAC and mother organizations. And if you claim to serve our communities, dialogue should not be optional. And finally, we are demanding that USAC put direct pressure on the administration to recognize these programs as essential infrastructure, not side projects, not student hobbies, but vital spaces of belonging and survival. We are not asking for charity. We are demanding what we are owed. And at the end of the day, I know that you, like us, work within the structure of this institution. However, let me be clear, your support is meaningless without tangible action. But make no mistake, the responsibility for these failures lies with the institution itself, and it is this institution that must be held accountable. We are not pleading, we are not waiting, we are here with purpose, with clarity, and with generations of community behind us. This is Samahang Filipino and the rest of the mother organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public commenters? I believe we have 2 online, but we'll entertain our last in-person public commenter.
Hi, my name is Zoe Monterola. I'm a current 4th year and scriptwriter for this year's Samahang Filipino Cultural Night, titled Pangako, or Promise in Tagalog. As such, one of my promises I've kept to everyone in this room, everyone who showed up for me, is to show up to learn. On the outside, as my first year involved in this space, I kind of thought of it as just a bunch of theater adults, but I was clearly proven right and also wrong. I've had to show up to learn from our dance coordinators the cultural significance of their art forms, from production, how to stay agile in uncertainty of all kinds, including this, from our cultural advisors, the legacy of the Filipino-American resistance that makes our show possible. Together, our lived experiences from every single person that you see in this room enriches our script and enriches all of the work that we do that upholds this university, and as others have mentioned, are the fabric of not only this country, but of this university. As we see this moment, DI falling apart and the increased scrutiny and polarization intensifying, SPCN, as well as the other SP entities, have taught me the transformative power of being able to hold contradiction, being able to do that throughout connection and collectivism. And we're all here ready to pay it forward as you see all of us showing up for each other, keeping our promises, to hold nuance and to honor contradiction, and to let our curiosities guide us to our most just and empathetic world. As such, changing these guidelines for BOD would give us the necessary support to pave the way for true equity in our university. Not only will this aid our efforts this year, but to provide sustainability for future celebrations of our culture. I can't imagine not having 1 year in this space, but I can't even begin imagining ticking 4 years away from someone else for something that you all sitting here today have the power to influence and change. So I urge you all to please join Samahang Filipino in rising for our rights and rising for education. Thank you all.
Thank you. We will entertain our last two public commenters online, starting with Sujano.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone. My name is Sujana Sridhar and I'm the chair of the elections board this year, just here to provide some updates. So as you all know, voting is open and will be open until 12 p.m. this Friday, May 16th. Voting is on My UCLA under the Campus Life tabs, then under surveys and notices, and then under elections. We also have like a QR code up on our Instagram and graphics that are easy to share. What we want to emphasize to people is that you can vote for as many or as few measures as you like. You can vote yes or no on the measures, but that you should just vote, and that voting is expressing yourself in whatever way you want to. We're also holding a raffle this year for the first time, I think in a long time, if not ever. We're giving away a free iPad, a pair of Sony XM5s, and 5 $100 Visa gift cards. So we're really excited to be able to do that, and we hope that you all can share that with your friends, and that really encourages people to vote. We've been doing publicity in every way we can with paid Instagram ads, flyering, signboards on campus, ads in the newsstand, as well as the banner on Bruin Walk. That has been a lot with the help of Bruin Media Group, which we really appreciate. We've also been collaborating with UCLA What's Bruin, the Instagram account run by Bruin Media Group, as well as Good Morning UCLA. It would be great if you guys could engage with our social media posts, maybe encourage your offices to leave comments, repost, or just use word of mouth to tell people in their classes, make classroom announcements, tell their friends, send in their group chats, anything. But we're just really hoping to get voter turnout up this year, help out the referendums, and of course just get people involved and in the know. And I'm also really focusing on really taking into account also the challenges we face this year and making it a lot smoother next year, and working really hard with my successor to make it even better. But lastly, results will be announced this Friday at 7 at Meyerhoff Park, which is the grassy area outside of Kirchhoff. That announcement will be public on our social media soon. But just keep that in mind as well, and tell your friends. And I hope to see you there. Happy voting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will entertain our last public commenter, Kikeli, who's online.
Hi, my name is Kikeli Buenyo. I'm here from ASU as chair of AfroGrad. I'm speaking out in support of Samahang Filipino and PGrad, and really just demanding that they receive the full funding necessary to continue to hold their graduation ceremony and cultural celebrations. Cultural celebrations are not a luxury, but they are a necessity. They provide spaces of recognition and celebration for students who have had to navigate institutions that were not built with them in mind. These ceremonies represent the labor, sacrifice, and resilience of our communities, and they should never be treated as an afterthought. These cultural graduations and celebrations are incredibly difficult and exhausting to plan with little or limited institutional support, and that burden should never, ever fall solely on students. When the university fails to fund cultural graduations equitably, it sends a message about whose stories matter and whose do not. AfroGrad and ASU stand in full solidarity with Samahang Filipino and PGrad because we know this struggle intimately. And if we refuse to normalize this pattern of cultural grads, being under-resourced and undervalued, multicultural organizations must remain united and vocal in moments like this. This is not just about funding or just about a ceremony. It's about affirming presence, identity, and worth. If the university is serious about equity and inclusion, then now is the time to prove it with actual investments. We stand with Samahang Filipino loudly and proudly. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your public comment. I will be closing public comment at 7:58 p.m. And we're going to move on to funding, starting with contingency.
Hello. This week we had a total contingency programming request of $63,235, and we recommend an allocation of $25,394 for no USAC entities and 50 non-USAC entities. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Have you? You put it back to the right. Yeah, thank you.
Those are blind.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I move to approve the contingency programming allocation of $25,394 to 0 USAC entities and 50 non-USAC entities.
Second.
Have you motions, Robbie seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 12 to 0 vote, that is approved. Next, we have SWC programming.
For SWC Programming Fund tonight, we have a total of 2 allocations, the total of $1,500 to 2 non-USAC entities.
Is there any opposition to the allocation? Seeing none, those are approved. Does anyone have the ARC numbers? Seeing none. Oh, they were line.
If you cover TGIF, I can do the math really quick.
Okay. Do you have TGIF numbers? Thank you.
TGIF recommends an allocation of $5,318.55 to 3 non-USAC entities and 0 USAC entities.
Thank you. We just have ARC allocations. Take your time.
Okay, there are 6 total recommended allocations, 4 going to USAC entities and 2 to non-USAC entities. Oh, sorry, that'll be 5 allocations, 4 to USAC and 4 to 4 USAC entities and 1 to to a non-USAC entity for a total of $5,200.
Is there any opposition to that allocation? Seeing none, we're going to move on to special presentations, starting with the transportation program updates and financial year 24-25 parking fee consultation presentation.
They're no longer presenting. They're just going to email us the slides instead.
Okay. We're going to move on to student advocacy and policy administration presentation. We have Ramsey.
Everyone, I'm Chris Ramsey, Gen 3 on USAC.
Good evening, Council. My name is Francisco Mena, and I'm the Internal Strategy Director for the GR3 office.
Yeah, so we're just going to kind of go over some different things about what SAPA is, what the point of it is, how we're going to contribute to long-term advocacy in USAC. So firstly, current issues. Elected officers serve 1-year terms. So we have a very limited amount of time to be able to work on projects. We come in, we have the summer, a lot of fall is usually spent hiring. And so that gives us about 2 quarters, or I guess a quarter and a half to be able to work on projects. We've had a lot of meetings where Jonathan has said, winter quarter is the quarter where you get stuff done. I think that's very true because at the end of the day, we often have just winter quarter where we're fully focused on our projects and not on hiring or anything else. So we have a very short window of time. Offices have changing goals every year, especially in many non-referendum offices. I think this is especially true with the GR offices. General offices, people campaign on completely different platforms every year, and then they have generally completely different staff every year. I think in some cases they can try to get platforms continued and projects continued year after year, but in a lot of cases, a lot of projects just end up getting scrapped just because it's not really possible for officers to be able to continue them year after year. And also there's a loss of long-term continuity. So this is true throughout a lot of different offices and not just the general offices and non-referendum offices. There's a lot of information that's just lost every single year. We've had a lot of meetings this year where we meet with admin and they'll bring up something that happened a few years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And of course, we have no response for it. We have no ability to really be able to talk to them about it because that information was lost and it's not really realistic for us to be able to talk to every single previous council about what their experiences were and what their meetings went like. At the same time, administrative staff hold positions for years, if not decades. So there's a huge disconnect in terms of information access when we bring up student issues. Administration, has been in their positions for a long time. They will just know a lot more than we do, and it's really hard for us to be able to advocate for things. So we really need an organization that supports inter-office collaboration and preserves information, initiatives, and members beyond the single term cycles.
So what exactly is SAPA? SAPA stands for Student Advocacy and Policy Administration. And it's a committee dedicated to facilitating long-term student-focused advocacy in USAC by working directly with offices and commissions on their initiatives, carrying projects from year to year, and providing bylaw and constitutional recommendations. And there's 3 main points here. So for USAC offices and commissions that have opted into SAPA collaboration, SAPA and SAPA members will, number 1, track and document key findings and developments in student-focused advocacy projects. 2, collaborate directly with office and commission members on current projects and encourage collaboration between offices working on similar initiatives. And number 3, maintain and report information year over year and invite returning members to continue working on the same projects to support long-term advocacy.
So keeping a working list of projects that SAPA will carry on next year if SAPA is created as a committee. And I'll kind of talk about what these projects are, as well as why SAPA would be uniquely beneficial in terms of continuing these projects. So firstly, we have Room Buddies and Global Bites, programs that are ISR programs. So these are programs that future ISRs will hopefully want to continue. And so this is something that can be continued by those offices. But at the same time, there is a lot of information that is very important in terms of expanding on programs and improving them year after year. With Room Buddies, for example, last year they started the program kind of late. And they had, I think, maybe half or fewer people who were actually engaged in the program and members of the program. And this year, taking that advice, we started the program much earlier. I think we were recruiting week 0, so very, very early. And we were able to get a lot of people turn out. And I think we had dozens, I think at one point we had like close to 100 applications, but there's a lot of people who joined, is the point. So by having SAPA work on this and facilitate this transition, SAPA will collect information in terms of what current officers think went well with the program and current staff members think well with the program, as well as what can be improved, and provide that to next year's council. For ISR, we're probably going to have like our staff completely change, as well as with the DR3 office, complete turnover in staff. So I think it'd be really good to have that continuity. Next up for meal access. So this is something that every single year, there's a lot of offices that do meet with dining and try to make inroads in terms of off-campus meal plans, in terms of swipe value, as well as the Swipe Out Hunger program. This is something that our office has worked on. I know we've worked with Swipe Out Hunger on this, and they're part of CSC. FSC also, I know, met with dining, and also I know that members of the EVP office met with dining, and we met with them before that meeting. So this is an area where information access is super, super important. I know that we talked to staff members in the EVP office who met with dining, and they didn't really have a ton of information going in about what previous negotiations and talks have looked like when people have met with dining in the past. And so they went in and they weren't really able to make as many inroads as they would have liked, just because they just didn't have access to that information. And so we met with them. We met with people from Swipe Out Hunger as well, and we had a lot of preparation and going to that meeting. And luckily, we were able to get a follow-up. But this is just another area where that information is super important to be able to know how to negotiate for things and how to be able to ask for things from dining. I think this is a program that SAP will be really good at continuing on, rather than having it go through the Swipe Out Hunger organization. Because Swipe Out Hunger right now, they're super, super understaffed. It's a lot for them because every single quarter during week 10, they have to basically go tabling out there 5 days a week, and people in their organization get super burnt out. So Swipe Out Hunger doesn't really have the capacity to continue all the advocacy that we've done completely on their own. And so what's worked really well this year is that we have people from USAC who are advocating for things with dining, as well as Swipe Out Hunger, and we do that simultaneously, as well as we have a lot of joint staffing for those projects. And by doing that, we've been able to get a lot more done than we would have had if it was just Swipe Out Hunger doing it. So this is an area where, even though there already is an org, then by having people from multiple orgs and USAC support, Swipe Out Hunger will be able to be a lot more effective in the future. Next up is summer storage. So this is a sorry. Summer storage. So yeah, this is a program where in our office, we're trying to basically provide better resources for students who are far from home, who need summer storage over the summer. And this is a program that there's not really any existing student org that can take it on. And so this is something that can be conducted by USAC. Rather than shopping around for newly elected council members and having 1 week to be able to transition, staff would be able to just continue this project, keep information, keep staff. We have staff in our office who want to continue this project and want to continue working on this. And through SAPA, we're just gonna be able to have people who are returning next year for long-term position and talk to staff talk to officers next year about continuing it. And finally, USAC accessibility. This is something that I know a lot of offices have worked on, so I know it's not a comprehensive list. That's something that, once again, people work on every single year. SAPA would collect information in terms of what has been successful, in terms of getting more people engaged in USAC, helping voter turnout and other things, and pass it on to future councils. So yeah, and we're gonna work with outgoing and incoming officers to add additional projects the council members would like to have continued support.
All right, so a little bit on the actual structure and leadership of SAPA. So the committee will be structured as you can see here. There's the chair to be appointed by USAC for a 1 or 2 year term. There's the internal vice chair, IVC, to be appointed by USAC for a 1 year term. And their responsibility is overseeing joint advocacy, transparency initiatives, and inter-USAC outreach and communication. And then we also have the external vice chair, EVC, to be appointed by USAC for a 1 year term. And their responsibility is overseeing public relations, programs, finances, and hiring. And SAPA will also be registered as a student organization, and all directors and general staff working in internal and external functions will apply and be interviewed by the chair, IVC, and EVC through the RCO.
So how do we actually make this happen logistically? So this is our bylaw change that we're proposing. It includes a couple different areas. So we're talking about basically adding it as an appointment for both the chair as well as the IVC and EVC roles, and also establishing as a permanent committee. So about the structure, it's going to be, for the chair, it's going to be a 1 or 2 year term. The reason behind this is for a long-term focused committee, obviously the ideal is that we have a 2 year appointment so people are able to stay in that position and just work through it through multiple councils. But at the same time, we recognize that a lot of people might be interested in running for future council positions later on, or taking on different staff positions, or they might be graduating within a year. So we want to provide that option for council to be able to appoint somebody for 1 year, if that's the best and most qualified applicant. And that being said, so most people who are working on projects are going to be, or not going to be part of the committee. They're going to be part of the club. So it's registered as an RCO. People are going to be part of the RCO, and they're going to work in SAPA for presumably a long period of time. So year after year after year. So they're staying in this for a long period of time. And yeah, the people who are actually working on this stuff are going to be staying for a long period of time. So even if the chair and IVC and EVC do change year after year, they're really just the leadership, and we're really just keeping SAPA accountable to council and making sure that they are responsible to council. But the people who are actually working on stuff are going to be staying for a long period of time. And so we'll make sure that way that that long-term information is kept. Yeah, so long-term vision. There's a lot of different benefits to having SAPA. Firstly, council members will be able to have a greater focus on long-term advocacy and work with SAPA to get their projects continued after their terms. Council members would not have to worry about potentially having future council members who are not interested in keeping on the projects or just have different priorities. And they wouldn't have to necessarily just go through the hassle of trying to find a way for the project to get continued without having some sort of long-term organization. A lot of projects are not really big enough to be continued by, or to create an entire student organization. And it's also unrealistic for council members to create an entire student organization just to continue on their projects. So this is, I think, a great way to do it. USAC staff will have access to information on previous administration policies, meetings, and initiatives to better inform their advocacy. So all those meetings that we had with administration this year, where we're talking to people about different policies, that information will be carried on. SAPA will talk to current staff about what we think went well with those meetings with administration, what we think could be improved, what we found out, what information might be useful to future councils, and pass it on. USAC staff can be joint members of SAPA and work with incoming councils each year to help students benefit from the previous year's advocacy. So if people are currently part of staff of offices and have things that, or feel like they do have a lot of information, they can actually be joint members of SAPA and they can continue being joint members of SAPA year after year. So when there's projects that tend to be taken on by offices year after year after year, for example, the meal access thing, meeting with dining, we can have joint members of SAPA who also are contacting and working with offices to help prepare them for those meetings. SAPA will notify offices when they have staff working on similar projects and facilitate collaboration between those offices. We have a lot of people who are part of our staffs who in many cases will be working on the same projects at the same time and might not be aware of it, or they might not be collaborating with each other. So SAPA will notify the staff of this for offices that have opted into SAPA, and they will facilitate collaboration to make sure that those offices are able to share information with each other, that they're working together, and they're able to be effective. And finally, USAC will be empowered to effectively engage in long-term student advocacy as one continuous and united organization. So USAC will be able to operate cohesively as one organization that exists year after year after year and throughout office to office. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone have?
All right, any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? Josh.
Hello, thank you so much for presenting on that, Chris. I definitely understand the concern of like long-term projects phasing out on USAC offices as we change positions every single year. CRC met today and we just had a couple concerns I think we were hoping that you could possibly address. One is how much bureaucratic oversight would this committee have over the projects? Just because I know there are a lot of projects that offices would prefer to keep internal. So just how would that division of labor work between the office and SAPA? And then second, I think another concern we had is like SAPA having the ability to actually oversee these projects on the long term if the club members and the appointments are changing each year, especially since some offices do have members, that stay like for 4 years within the commission internally.
Yeah, I think those are both great questions. Firstly, in terms of oversight, that's an area where this is USAC officers are opting into this program. USAC officers, council members do not have to work with SAP if they don't want to. If there are projects that they want to keep entirely within their office, that's totally fine. And I know there are some offices and commissions that prefer to do that. If there are any projects they would like to work with SAPA on or they think they can benefit from, then they will work with SAPA and they can opt into it. But all this is about providing an option to council members. None of this is about trying to make council members do anything if they don't want to work with projects or work on projects in that way. So hopefully that answers the first question. Okay, cool. And the second thing, I'm sorry, what was the second question again?
I'm just like, how would the committee ensure that they're able to work on projects in the long term if club members change out each year? Also, if the appointments are only 1 to 2 year terms, because a lot of commissions have people that stay within the office for 3-4 years too.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the leadership changes every year, or I guess has a capacity to change every year. People who are IBC, EBC, or chair would presumably already be on exec or presumably already be part of the club once this has been around for a while. So it's not like we're just completely overhauling it every year. In terms of actual club members, SAPA will function like a club. And clubs have people who stay in those clubs for year after year after year, oftentimes throughout their USAC experience. The people who are the staff who are working within the club itself, within the RCO, they're not going to change every year. They're going to be staying in SAPA if they choose to. So in that way, it would work kind of similarly to the commission, but at the same time, it'll have an added emphasis on just working with the current council and just supporting the current council with what they're working on.
Any other questions? Thank you guys so much for presenting. We appreciate your work. And I think we're going to discuss the bylaw change later today.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. We're going to move on to officer reports. We'll only take the 4 today because of time. Mine will be written. Josh.
Yeah, just a few updates. We're having our basic needs resource fair in Wilson Plaza tomorrow. I think we have about 20 campus departments and student organizations attending. Some of your offices are also attending. It's going to be from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. So if you're interested, please come and stop by. And then we're continuing to coordinate our red card distribution, which should hopefully launch this week with SWC, ISR, TSR. And then me and Mona are also continuing to plan our mental health awareness event in collaboration with BMP as well as USP. And that is it for me today.
Avi.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I just really want to highlight some things from my officer report. The first one is pretty urgent, and it's something that council is going to be addressing tonight. But I want to encourage folks to submit a letter of opposition against Assembly Bill 715 by Assembly members Spur and Addis, titled Educational Equity Against Discrimination. Essentially, this bill, the official bill language is on my officer report, but essentially this bill is another rendition of a previous ethnic studies bill that is intended to die out, that is essentially trying to implement another bureaucratic structure to under the guise of fighting anti-Semitism, is meant to sort of just police what can and can't be taught in California classrooms in regards to Palestine and the history of the Middle East and the Levant. So yeah, the link to go fill out the letter is right there. The original notice post by Jewish Voice for Peace in the Bay Area is also included for your reference if you would like more information. But please, 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 if you are intending to send a letter of support, please do so immediately. It is pretty pressing because they are intending to hear this bill out in committee. If not later this week, then early next week. Yeah, and I just want to continue highlighting the appointed officer positions through the UC Students Association. Those applications are due by May 30th. If you have any questions, please reach out to me or via Instagram, and we'll be more than happy to support you on that. Yeah, so another thing I just wanted to highlight are regular meetings with AVC Leary of Campus Safety. Some important follow-ups that came out of that was really just following up with AVC Leary to confirm the money that the university has been putting into policing, private security, and mutual aid, especially with the recent uptick that we saw during the anniversary of the encampments, and that we are expecting to see in early June in preparation for the chancellor's inauguration. We also met with ISR Tamim and UCSA's Campus Climate Appointed Officer, Diria, to discuss next steps into looking into UCPD spending and overall data disaggregation as part of a system-wide project. And we're also confirming the current timeline for the hiring of a new UCPD police chief and the intention on hosting community forums with students. For the May Board of Regents meeting that's going to be starting tomorrow, we sent a delegation of around 11 students to SF. They're actually flying right now. And we were able to solidify our talking points into 4 main issue groups. First one being supporting the Burn Fresh undocumented student grocery stipend program and basic needs. Second is undocumented student allyship and the Opportunity for All campaign. Third is international student allyship and free speech. Fourth is protection and funding of our access and retention programs. So you guys should be expecting updates from our group as they stay in SF for the next couple of days. And hopefully we're able to, the goal is to be not just with our student regents, but also secure meetings with other members of the Board of Regents in order to discuss these varying issue priorities. And yeah, I also just wanna give a huge shout out to Mona for leading a very successful Transfer Advocacy Day delegation. We sent around 12 students to Sacramento last week to advocate on a number of different budget priorities that impact not just transfer students, but also all university and college students. So I'm really happy about that. If you are curious about our state budget and legislative priorities, please look at my officer report. They're pretty lit. But aside from that, I will make the rest of my report written. Thank you.
Espino.
Yeah, the only comment I have for today is please come out and support the collaborative event that we have with IVP tomorrow, which is called the Summer Resource Fair from 11 to about 3:30-ish. That's it. The rest is written. Thank you.
Thank you. Orlando.
Hello, everyone. Just a quick reminder, in 2 weeks, it will be the Charles E. Young Humanitarian Award. I'll have more information at our next meeting for those that you may want to attend. Thank you.
Jessica.
Hello, just 2 quick updates. First, I want to invite you all to the not Summer in the Union, Art in the Union reception happening on Thursday at 5 o'clock in the art gallery. We're going to be acknowledging our winners of the annual Art in the Union competition, and there'll be food and drinks. So please stop by and check out the artwork. We had a lot of great entries this year. The second thing I wanted to let you all know, So we're going to be doing an update to our accounting software next week on Friday. So it'll be May 23rd. But just as a heads up and FYI, our accounting software will be down for the day. So we will not be able to process any purchase orders or do any account openings or things like that, but it should only be down for part of the day. So it won't impact check run or anything, but we'll basically only, SGA will only be available for check pickup on that day. We won't really be able to support any other inquiries if it requires us getting into our accounting software. So I just want to let you all know so that you all anticipate that we will be limited service on the 23rd. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Nothing from you. Oh, Lori.
Nothing from me tonight.
Jonathan.
Hey, hi, hello. I do have a bit of a list today, so bear with me. First things first, my list is down to 2 people. It's Javi and it's Kyland. I need your transition documents 2 weeks ago. If you want your last stipend check and you want your cord, please. Yeah, the 2 of you. If you have submitted your transition docs, so you are not Javi or Kyland, and Lorelai has gotten us as the recovery for all of your accounts, then you are welcome to stop by our office and pick up your cord if you're if you're graduating or if you are not coming back next year. Yeah. A reminder that you should not be hosting any official events on behalf of your office after the 27th, as you will no longer be in office. If you have outstanding bills that we sent you or that you just know of otherwise, please, 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 please pay them. With that, the rec deadline for this quarter is June 6th. I highly, 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 highly encourage you to get your things figured out before that, specifically because you will not have access to your official email after the 30th of May. So if you have things coming up, please get that in. If it is a graduation specific event, like if it's like for a student org that you have a funding body for, the rec deadline is the 13th. Only graduation events get the extended deadline. The 6th is your hard deadline otherwise. In terms of transition deadlines, a reminder that you'll need to give your social media over, or at least let them have access starting on the 23rd, which is next week. Keep that in mind. And that you will lose access to your Kirchhoff office on the 26th of May. So please clean up, grab your things, and let everyone know that their access is getting wiped. Again, your emails have to be turned over by the 30th. And yeah. I put it in the Slack, but for our seniors, our graduating folks, you all are considered ASU-CLA seniors since you are employed by us, and USA is one of our 4 entities of ASU-CLA. So please take a look at that. If you, there's a list of options for your senior gift that you get from ASU-CLA, and there's a little reception. And you do need to RSVP, I believe. So all that info is in the Slack if you're graduating. I also dropped a volunteer opportunity in the Slack with UCLA Government Community Relations, the Northwestwood Neighborhood Council, and some other wonderful folks. And that senior send-off event is on the 22nd, which is also next week. I also dropped in the Slack a free resume and cover letter workshop that ASU-CLA is hosting for those of you graduating or not. Wonderful free opportunity. And then I did send out today instructions for your carryover allocations if they're going to a department or if you're doing stipends for your staff. So please read that thoroughly. The TLDR is that if you are doing a department rec, so your money is getting moved to a department, please submit those recs and let us know the rec number by the 18th, which is Sunday. If you need more time, not a huge deal, but please let us know so we know not to bug you. And then if you are doing honorarium recs, please have those in by the 23rd. And that is more of a hard deadline because there's going to be a flush of them and we're going to need time to process. And yeah, that's just the regular honorarium rec process. And then in your last week, before your last meeting, which is next week, if you didn't know, next week is your last meeting. I highly recommend that you look at your bylaws for your section, but also just other sections in general, things that you've seen this year that don't exist anymore, particularly if you're someone who's supposed to oversee a standing committee that doesn't exist anymore. There are a handful of you. Or anything else like that, I highly recommend you bring those next week. And that's it. Have a good week.
Thank you, Jonathan. Sorry, I skipped over the resolution updates. Kiara has an update.
It's pretty brief. So the resolution that I presented, I believe 3 weeks ago now, that was on the sustainability of the menstrual products on campus. That was in collaboration with our Brew and Necessities Committee. So we had sent that over to a few admin as well as specifically the AVC, the Vice Chancellor for facilities. And we did get a response. One of the biggest concerns was just the budget cut or the budgetary concerns that they've looked into in the past and that they did not see as feasible. So we're trying to set up a meeting with them and see if there's any way that my office could support and that we could kind of move forward at least with a potential like pilot program in the next year that would be a smaller amount that they could implement and go from there. So relatively short update, but still working on it.
Thank you, Kiara. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on. We have Tommy's 2 bylaw changes. They already presented last week, so unless there's anything you want to bring up, Tommy.
Is it possible to make an amendment?
Yeah.
All right. I just have one amendment to the one that's establishing the committee. I do recognize that last time people had concern or questions about what the committee was. So just this would be the added clause under there would just be instead the new number 1 would be the purpose of the committee is to promote transparency and accountability by securing and analyzing information related to UCLA's operations and finances relevant to the Undergraduate Student Association. The committee coordinates with university entities to uphold standards of integrity and conducts reviews of associated activities and records. So just adding that in there just so that whoever's reading our bylaws or whoever's all of you all just know that as well. So, yeah. So do I have to motion to amend it or
No, just change our documents.
Okay, amazing. All right, it's added.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Could you motion both of those, Tommy, separately?
Yes, so the first one, I motion to approve bylaw change establishing an oversight committee.
Second.
Tommy motions, Javi seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 13-0 vote, that is approved.
And then just the second bylaw change, there's no amendments needed, so do I just motion to approve?
Yeah.
All right, and then motion to approve bylaw change, adding an oversight committee chair under the president's appointments.
Second.
Tommy motions, Despino seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. with a 13-0 vote. That is approved. We're going to move on to Ramsey's bylaw change. I believe you already described most of it, but feel free to highlight anything else you want to highlight. Microphone isn't working, I don't think.
Okay, I think I already kind of went through everything. Yeah, obviously, if there's any questions, any concerns, any feedback, I'm happy to hear it, and we can talk about it. I want to make sure that SAP is something that is able to support, our committee and other councils in the future. So, yeah.
Any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the two letters we have, starting with Javi's letter of opposition for AB 715.
Okay. Yeah, just because this was a last minute introduction, I'm gonna go ahead and read through it in its entirety. So it starts off by saying, we, the Undergraduate Students Association Council, USAC, strongly oppose Assembly Bill 715 proposed by Spur and Addis. This is the deeply concerning bill proposal that fundamentally threatens academic freedom, diversity of thought, and freedom of expression in California classrooms. AB 715 would, under the guise of combating anti-Semitism, prohibit California educators from being able to engage in meaningful conversation with students that even point towards the mildest of criticisms against the Israeli government. As we see a horrific time in history unfold in front of our very eyes in the event that is the Palestinian genocide, it is appalling that our elected representatives would go as far as to stifle freedom of thought in our classrooms and even honest education around world events. If passed, this bill would set a dangerous precedent and only further contribute to the end goal of Project 2025 as attacks are being made across the board against historical accuracy and diverse viewpoints. Please do not allow the Jewish Legislative Caucus to demand concessions that will burden teachers and administrators and impose the deeply flawed International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IHRA, definition of anti-Semitism on our state. Criticizing the state of Israel does not make the one anti-Semitic. The Trump administration is currently under the IHRA to illegally and unconstitutionally detain and deport people here legally in the United States. Do not let it be used to censor open and fair education about Israel and Palestine in California. AB 101 guardrails and multiple other laws and policies already protect all students from discrimination and any form of racism. Developing yet another layer of bureaucracy in an effort to protect Israel's reputation, is a waste of taxpayer money and increases the risk that teachers will be doxxed or worse if they teach about Israel and Palestine. The USAC therefore calls upon the California State Legislature to stand with students and oppose AB 715. As it stands, this bill only seeks to further political repression, enable fear-mongering around the Palestine solidarity movement, and use the battle to preserve ethnic studies as a means to cover censorship in our classrooms. Please do the right thing, fully fund ethnic studies with no concessions to the Jewish Legislative Caucus in its apparent effort to shield the state of Israel from criticism. Signed, the Undergraduate Students Association Council. Any questions?
Comments or questions? Seeing none, can we get a motion?
No,
Oh,
Chris.
Sorry, you're blocked by the computer.
Yeah,
Ramsey.
it's all good. I'm abstaining from this. I completely agree with I think the sentiment. And I think that we absolutely should be allowed to criticize the country of Israel. I don't feel like I've been able to actually read the specific language in the bill and make an informed decision. So I'm going to abstain today.
That is completely understandable. This was a very last minute bill that was brought to our table today. So I understand that.
Any other comments or questions? Motion.
Okay. I move to adopt the USAC letter of opposition for AB 715 by Spur and Addis.
Second.
Sorry, who was that? Mona? Have motions. Mona seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 12-0 to 1 vote, that is approved. Last but not least, we have Tommy's resolution.
It's not a reso, it's just
letter.
Letter. But yeah, so as you know, a few months ago, we passed the resolution of no confidence in the Office of Campus Community Safety. And there was a really long discussion about not saying no confidence in Steve Lurie because he hasn't had enough time to be in the job to see. So basically this letter just kind of outlines the events of these past few weeks, which we believe in serves grounds for now an official no confidence letter in Steve Lurie. So I know we're really late. So basically, that's just kind of the gist. And we really hope you guys will vote yes on this.
Comments or questions? Seeing none, motion. Kiara.
I motion to pass the USAC Lurie no confidence letter.
I second.
Kiara motions, Diego seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstain, please raise your hands. With a 13-0 to 0 vote, that is approved. We have, before we end, we have one more thing to do. Have you?
Yeah, so this was a recommendation by Jonathan on a previous motion I had made to amend the minutes from last USAC meeting. I guess I'll just do it as he told me. I moved to change the carryover allocation of $75,000 from the Blackburn Resource Center to reflect a total of $13,000 being allocated to the Blackburn Resource Center and a total of $62,000 being allocated to Campus Life under SOL for ASU programming under the EARN proposal.
Second.
Happy emotions, 1 second. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstain, please raise your hands. With a 13-0 to 0 vote, that is approved. Jonathan, next week's our last meeting, right? Okay, next week we're gonna be formal. Oh no, yes. Do we have next council members coming next week?
Yes, you
Okay.
do.
We'll be formal next week so we can take pictures and stuff.
And Pamela has decided to cater your last meeting as a thank you for a nice year of hard work. So food will be served around 6:30. If I recall.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. And I adjourn this meeting at 8:41 p.m.